The heat shimmered off the empty asphalt like a mirage, warping the horizon into liquid waves. Lena Morgan gripped the steering wheel of her battered Ford Escape, eyes scanning the long stretch of Highway 27 ahead, then flicking back to the rearview mirror. There was no shoulder out here, just flat New Mexico desert, sun-bleached gravel and the jagged outline of far-off mesas. The radio played softly, some dusty folk station out of Albuquerque. Her daughter Maisie was asleep in the back seat, curled under a blanket with her shoes off, mouth half open, one hand still wrapped around her dad's old dog tags. They'd left Santa Fe before sunrise, trying to outrun the worst of the heat and the questions neither of them liked answering anymore. Lena's knuckles tightened as she caught sight of them again. 2 motorcycles, far back at first, then closer. They'd been tailing her for the last 20 miles. She told herself not to panic. This was probably nothing. Just a coincidence. 2 guys on Harleys riding the same highway. Still, they hadn't passed her, hadn't fallen back, just lingered, like wolves. Waiting. The Escape shuddered slightly, engine grumbling at the incline ahead. Lena eased off the gas. The gas light blinked on, another problem for later. Her eyes flicked up again. The bikes were gaining. Black helmets. No visible. "Plates, Mom?" came a small voice from behind. Lena jumped, then exhaled. "Maisie, baby, you okay?" The 11-year-old rubbed her eyes, her dark curls matted on one side. "Why'd we slow down?" Lena forced a smile into her voice. "Just taking it easy on the engine, go back to sleep." But Maisie was looking in the side mirror now. "Those guys are still behind us." "Yeah, I know." The motorcycles were closer now. One pulled up alongside her driver's side mirror for a few seconds, just long enough for Lena to catch a glimpse of the man beneath the helmet. He had a skull tattoo across his neck and wore a cut-off vest with some kind of snake insignia. The other bike blocked the lane behind them, slowing traffic that didn't exist. They were boxing her in. Lena's mouth went dry. She reached for her phone in the cup holder. No signal, not even a single bar. "Maisie, I need you to stay calm, okay?" she said, trying to sound steady. Her daughter straightened, alert now. "Are they following us?" Lena nodded once. "Yeah, but I've got an idea." She eased the car down from 60 to 40, then 30, until the Harleys were crawling beside them. One of the bikers knocked on her window with a gloved hand, 3 firm raps. He gestured to the side of the road. Lena glanced at Maisie. "When I say run, you run, okay?" Maisie looked confused. "Run where? We're in the middle of nowhere." "I don't know yet. Just trust me." The SUV slowed to a halt, dust curling up around the wheels. Lena put it in park but left, the engine running. She leaned over, opened the glove box, and then reached beneath the floor mat in the back seat. She peeled up a layer of insulation and pulled free a dented green metal case with a faded Army insignia. Maisie blinked. "Is that Dad's?" "The field radio," Lena confirmed. "Still works if we're lucky." She cracked the lid open. The PRC-113 military radio hadn't seen use in over a decade, but Aaron had kept it in pristine shape. Back when he was alive. Back when they were a family stationed on the border, not 2 ghosts slipping between cities dodging grief and debt. The unit blinked once. Dim, but alive. The first biker stepped off his Harley and walked toward her door, helmet still on, a crowbar in his left hand. Lena keyed the frequency she remembered Aaron using, his unit's old disaster channel. It was a shot in the dark, a Hail Mary into dead air, then static, then a crackling voice. "Delta Echo 7 receiving." "Say again?" Lena's breath caught. "Delta Echo 7, this is Sierra Lima Morgan," she said quickly. "Single mother with child. 2 hostile bikers. Highway 27 southbound near mile marker 214. No cell signal. Request immediate assistance. Repeat. Request immediate assistance." There was a pause. "Copy that, Sierra Lima. Sit tight. Help N. Route, confirm presence of minor." Lena looked at her daughter. "Confirmed. 11-year-old female." Maisie stared at the radio, lips parted. Another voice came over the air, older gravel in his tone. Sierra Lima, this is Captain Hale. We've got your location. 15 minutes out. Can you stall? Lena watched the biker knock again, harder, this time. She grabbed the tire iron from beneath the seat. I can try, Maisie whispered. Mom, what if they try to break in? Then we fight dirty, like your dad taught us. Outside, the first biker tried the door handle. It was locked, of course, but his posture shifted, readying the crowbar. Maisie leaned forward. Let me try to boost the signal. Before Lena could stop her, Maisie grabbed the field manual from the case and started scanning the diagrams. What are you doing? Dad showed me once. How to extend the range with a coat hanger, or a fence post. She glanced at the roadside. The radio crackled again. Morgan, be advised, if you can delay contact, we've got 2 vehicles mobilized from Echo Outpost. We're watching via drone. Drone? Outpost? Who were these people? The biker raised the crowbar. And that's when Lena threw the door open and slammed it into him with all her strength. He stumbled backward, stunned. She was on him in 2 seconds. Tire iron raised. Maisie shouted, Mom! The second biker rushed in, but a shot rang out, echoing across the desert. A puff of dust kicked up by his feet. The bikers froze. Another shot. This one clipped the side mirror. Sierra Lima, this is Hale. That was your warning shot. Recommend all hostiles retreat immediately. Lena heard the roar of a pickup approaching fast from behind. Big tires on gravel. An old Ford F-250, desert tan, with camo netting along the roof. It skidded sideways in front of her SUV, and out stepped a wiry man in his 60s with a scoped rifle and a hunter's calm. The bikers took one look at him, at the radio crackling inside the car, at Maisie with the field manual in her lap, and bolted. Tires screeched as they roared back down the highway, dust clouds in their wake. Lena leaned against the open door, trembling. Maisie, I told you, her daughter said softly, clutching the dog tags. Dad wouldn't leave us, without a plan. The man approached, rifle lowered. Name's Frank Hale, retired captain. Let's get you somewhere safe. Lena looked down at the radio, still glowing faintly. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone out here. She looked at Frank. Where the hell did you come from? He smiled grimly. Let's just say not all of us stopped listening. The sun dipped lower behind the mesas, and Lena Morgan sat on a folding chair outside the ranger station, wrapped in a loaned army blanket, trying to convince her body it was warm, even as her nerves still rattled like loose glass. The desert cooled quickly once the sun left, and so did adrenaline. Her fingers trembled around a mug of instant coffee, the kind that tasted like ash and battery acid, but somehow helped just the same. Inside the cabin, Maisie and Frank Hale hunched over the communications console like surgeons over a patient. The little girl looked absurdly small beside the weathered veteran, her elbows barely reaching the table, but the focus in her eyes was sharp as flint. She was flipping through her father's old field manual, pointing at the makeshift antenna they'd rigged from a roadside reflector rod and a coil of copper wire. Frank was nodding, muttering, Yep, your dad taught you right. Good grounding, too. Lena pulled her blanket tighter. 10 minutes earlier, they'd barely made it off the highway before her legs gave out from under her. It was only pure instinct, motherhood mixed with muscle memory, that had kept her upright through the danger. But now, away from the roar of engines and men with crowbars, the weight came crashing down. If that radio hadn't worked, if that man hadn't answered. She sipped the coffee. Inside, Maisie's voice crackled through the open window. It's still running hot, but I think we can push frequency range another 12 miles if we loop it through the chassis frame. Frank chuckled. She's got her father's mind. Lena stood slowly, stretching sore muscles, and walked back into the ranger station. It was a squat, low-roofed building of stone and corrugated metal tucked against a bluff. Inside, it looked like a Vietnam-era fallout shelter crossed with a AM radio club. Coils of wire hung from nails in the wall. Maps were spread across an old ping-pong table. Shelves sagged with water jugs, MREs, spare batteries, and the occasional paperback novel with creased spines. Frank looked up from the bench. "You okay?" he asked, voice low and calm. "No," Lena said bluntly. "But thanks for asking." He gestured to the table. "Your girl's sharp. Most kids don't know Morse from microwave popcorn." Maisie looked up, her expression sheepish. "I kinda learned from Dad's notebook. After he died, I used to sneak into the garage and try his equipment. Mom never knew." Lena blinked at her daughter. "I thought you were just tinkering with your science fair robot." Maisie gave a one-shoulder shrug. "I was, but sometimes I'd listen. You know, on the shortwave. Weird stuff. Pilots, weather stations. Once I picked up a guy in Alaska yelling at a bear." Frank smiled. "Shortwave's a strange neighborhood." Lena dropped into the folding chair across from them. "All right, Frank, let's cut to it. Who are you really, and what the hell just happened back there?" Frank leaned back, interlacing his fingers over his lean stomach. "Retired Green Beret. After I left the service, I moved out here, started running a civilian net with some other vets. We scan emergency bands, watch local routes, help folks when we can. A few years ago, people started disappearing out on Highway 27, mostly women, always on dead signal stretches. No trace, no bodies, no charges." Lena felt a chill crawl up her spine. "The bikers?" Frank nodded. "Part of a larger ring. Call themselves the Hollow Suns. Used to be low-level, smugglers. Then they got smart, started picking up people, selling them to whoever paid most. Cartels, rich psychos, offshore brokers. Last year they took a state trooper's niece. We found pieces of her car 5 miles off-road." Maisie swallowed hard. "So, they were gonna take us?" Frank's face darkened. "Most likely. But you surprised them, and your little broadcast. That shook the hornet's nest." Lena exhaled slowly. "I didn't even know the radio would work." "It shouldn't have," Frank said. "That unit's over 15 years obsolete, but someone patched it. Looks like your husband didn't trust cell towers either." Maisie glanced at her mother. "He used to say, 'If the sky falls, I'll be on Channel 7. Frank chuckled, softly. "And tonight you were." Lena leaned forward, tension knitting her brows. "You said others are watching this highway. You've got, what, a network?" Frank nodded. "Unofficial. Former military mostly. Border Patrol retirees, ham nerds. A couple ex-NSA techs who got disillusioned. We're not militia. We don't wave flags and shout on cable news. We just keep eyes open. And now that I called for help?" Frank's eyes sharpened. "Now you're a target. You embarrassed them. Hollow Suns don't forgive that," Maisie whispered. "So what do we do?" Frank looked at them both. "You've got 2 options. Stay here. Lay low. Let us move you off-grid until this cools down. Or," he paused, "you fight back." Lena's lips parted. "Fight how?" Frank stood and crossed to a dusty trunk in the corner. He opened it slowly, revealing a compact AR-15, several sidearms, a stack of encrypted radios, and a battered laptop with duct tape across the lid. "We track them. Intercept their movements, leak their comms, expose them piece by piece. Maisie's already intercepted part of their signal. Encrypted, sure, but not bulletproof." Lena stared at the gear. "You want us to become vigilantes?" "I want you to survive," Frank replied, "and take back your power. Because trust me, once the Hollow Suns find out who sent that signal, they'll come back. They always do." Silence filled the station. Then Maisie stepped forward. "What if I can boost the range even more? Use the drone Dad gave me. I never got it flying right, but if we patch in the antenna system, I could maybe." Lena grabbed her daughter's hand. "Stop." Maisie blinked. "But Mom," Lena's voice cracked. "You're a kid. You're supposed to be worried about algebra and TikTok, not biker gangs and encrypted channels." Maisie looked down at the dog tags, hanging from her neck. "Dad didn't die so we could run forever." Frank watched the exchange without interrupting. Then finally he said, "It's not all on her. You've got more strength than you know." Most people freeze in a crisis. You fought back. You made that call. You saved your daughter. Lena looked at the table, then at the old radio still blinking, faintly. Outside, the desert wind kicked up, brushing sand against the windows like dry rain. Finally, she said, "All right, you've got one night. Show me what you've got." But the first sign this puts her in more danger, we're gone. Frank nodded. Fair enough. I'll get Maya on the line. She's our comms specialist. He walked to the radio. Lena slumped into the chair. Maisie looked up at her, eyes wide and hopeful. "You're not mad?" Lena pulled her close. "No, honey. I'm scared. But that's not the same." From the back room, Frank's voice echoed. "Echo station to Switchblade. Come in. We've got a live one, and she's not backing down." The silence was shattered by the metallic clatter of bullets being loaded into a magazine. Frank Hale's hands moved methodically, muscle memory from decades past. His rifle lay stripped and cleaned on the table beside a half-eaten can of beans. In the far corner, Terry Knox was patching a hamstring tear with duct tape and aspirin, humming off-key to an old Travis Tritt song crackling through the radio. Lena stood outside the ranger station, staring at the endless desert. It had a way of making people feel small, but tonight, it just made her feel focused. Her hands were wrapped in sports tape. She'd never held a sidearm before today. Never practiced disarming someone. Never jammed a radio antenna into the ground, while trying not to cry. That was this morning. Now she knew how to slap a magazine into a 9mm Glock without flinching. Inside, Maisie sat cross-legged in front of Frank's ancient laptop, running a military-grade software suite that shouldn't legally exist. The drone she and Frank had restored was charging in the corner. They'd jerry-rigged it with an antenna coil, giving it just enough range to ping radio signals over a 12-mile radius. It would fly at sunrise. They didn't have much time. 3:04 a.m. The hollow sun sent their first message. Maisie caught it while running a sweep. "Mom. Frank. I've got something." Everyone stopped. The signal was faint, buried beneath civilian noise, encrypted with a low-frequency pulse that pulsed like a heartbeat. It was a fragment, just 4 seconds long. Target confirmed. Sierra Lima and child. Coordinates approximated. Move before sunrise. Frank froze. Maisie turned. "They're coming. They know we're here." Terry muttered, "Damn fast." Frank replied, "No, not fast, wired. We've got a leak somewhere. No way they triangulated us that quick without help." Lena stepped forward. "So what do we do?" Frank looked around the cabin, then at Lena. "We dig in." By 3:30 a.m., the ranger station had become a fortress. Maya Alvarez, callsign Switchblade, arrived just before 4. She rode a matte black dual sport bike, laptop strapped to her back, holster clipped to her thigh. She didn't bother with greetings, just nodded once at Lena and went straight to the signal repeater rig they'd strung up beside the water tower. Frank briefed her in one sentence. "They're coming." She nodded again. Time to play. The cabin's perimeter was laced with simple defenses. Tripwires connected to aluminum cans, tire spikes set in the sand, motion sensors carved from repurposed garage door openers. Terry had dug a shallow trench by the entrance, just deep enough to force anyone approaching into his line of fire. They were 4 people, 2 radios, and an 11-year-old girl standing against a biker militia, and Lena had never felt so clear. Maisie sat beside her, watching as she practiced holding a sidearm. Her hands still trembled, but the fear was compartmentalized now, like a splinter she'd learned to walk with. "You sure you want to stay?" Frank asked her at one point. Lena didn't hesitate. "I don't run anymore." He studied her, then nodded once. "Then we make this count." The first roar of motorcycles came just after 4:47 a.m., low and steady, like thunder in the distance. Frank raised his binoculars. 3 bikes, not the full pack, scouts. Maisie flipped the drone into the air. It buzzed upward with a struggling whine, but lifted. On-screen heat signatures emerged, riders approaching but slowly. They were cautious now. Lena's call the night before had bought them a reputation. Switchblade traced the comm signal to a transmitter embedded in the side panel of a roadside emergency call box 6 miles away. "They've been using state infrastructure," she muttered, teeth gritted. "These bastards are smarter than I thought." Frank's voice stayed calm. "Everyone to position. Let them come close. Don't shoot unless they cross the boundary." Terry grinned. "Been waiting to see what these pretty toys can do." Lena crouched behind the sandbags with her borrowed pistol, sweat sticking her shirt to her back. Maisie was in the bunker, safe, for now, with a headset and a laptop monitoring every move. Then came the howl of an engine. A fourth bike crested the ridge. Frank exhaled slowly. "That's not a scout." The rider didn't slow. He accelerated. "Move!" Frank shouted. Lena dove aside as the motorcycle hit the sandbag wall, flipping end over end and bursting into flames. The rider skidded free, dazed, then tried to stand, but Terry was already there, shotgun raised. "Don't," he said. The man froze. Frank grabbed him by the collar. "How many behind you?" The biker spat. "Enough." Frank smiled grimly. "That's the wrong answer." By sunrise, they'd learned 2 things. First, the Hollow Suns weren't just a gang anymore. They had tactical coordination, encrypted channels, and access to state-grade surveillance. Second, they'd underestimated Lena Morgan. During the brief interrogation, the biker confessed their crew had been tailing Lena since she crossed into Texas 2 weeks ago. Why? Because someone at a private intelligence firm, Branwick Solutions, had flagged her as valuable collateral. Her late husband's name, his military service, his classified testimony, it was all still on someone's list. "They think she knows something," Frank muttered. "Or think Aaron left her something." Maya turned from the laptop. "Then we need to find out who's feeding them." Lena stepped into the morning light, jaw set like concrete. "They came for my daughter," she said. "They thought I'd run." Frank looked at her, then handed her a military-grade radio. "What now?" she asked. He nodded to the rising sun. "Now you call them." Lena blinked. "What?" "You've got the world's attention now. They're listening. You want to scare them? Broadcast a message." Lena looked down at the radio. Then she clicked the mic. "To the men who tried to take my daughter, you failed. I'm not hiding. I've got friends, I've got a signal, and I'm coming for answers. You like to hunt in the dark. But I just lit a fire. Let's see what runs toward the light." She clicked it off. Frank stared at her for a long moment, then gave a single approving nod. Maisie whispered from inside, "That was badass." And for the first time since Aaron's funeral, Lena Morgan smiled. Not because she felt safe, but because she finally felt dangerous. The safe house was hidden inside the shell of a collapsed ranger's observatory, 10 miles east of the highway and 200 feet above the desert floor. From a distance, it looked like a ruin. Charred support beams, crumbled stone, nothing worth salvaging. But underneath, through a trapdoor concealed beneath the ashes of a false campfire, was a different world. Maisie descended the ladder first, flashlight clutched tight. Whoa! The corridor below opened into what looked like a Cold War bunker, crossed with a prepper's fever dream. Generators hummed quietly along the wall. Maps were pinned in triplicate, paper, laminated, digital. A 6-screen monitor array flickered with satellite imagery, real-time feeds and lines of code dancing like rain. Lena followed, her footfall slow. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. Her knuckles were raw from drills, her eyes heavy from 2 straight nights without sleep. But her mind had never felt sharper. "Welcome to Echo," Frank said, stepping into view. "Built in '88, decommissioned in '01. Now it's ours." Terry was already there, stitching up a split on his forearm with one hand and holding a protein bar with the other. He grinned. "Showers lukewarm, coffee's tragic, Wi-Fi's better than most motels." Maya sat at the command desk, typing furiously. "And our visitors from last night? Backed off after we fried one of their repeaters. They're regrouping, probably pissed." Lena sat beside her daughter on a makeshift bench, sighing. "Good. Let them be pissed. Frank handed her a water bottle and dropped a folder into her lap. "What's this?" she asked. "Everything Branwick Solutions doesn't want you to. No." The folder was thick. Documents, redacted reports, photos clipped from surveillance footage. At the center, a name Lena hadn't heard in years. Colonel Edward Ray Branwick. The man who'd led her husband's last assignment. The man who ordered Aaron's testimony sealed under federal archive. The man who disappeared 6 weeks before Aaron's funeral. Maya turned her screen. Branwick's firm isn't just private security. They're contracting for 5 states, running border analytics, drone surveillance, even municipal traffic cams. And get this, one of their satellite offices flagged your plates last week near Clovis. Lena's throat tightened. Why? Frank's eyes were cold. Because you and Aaron weren't just military family. He was part of Project Keystone. Lena blinked. That's classified. Frank smirked. So's half my basement. But we're not dealing with amateurs anymore. Branwick's crew is feeding intel to groups like the Hollow Suns, cleaning up loose ends. You, Maisie, you're not targets of opportunity. You're part of a pattern. Lena's mind reeled. Why now? She asked. Why come after us now, years after Aaron died? Terry answered this time, unwrapping another bar. Because Keystone didn't end when Aaron died. Someone reactivated it. My guess? They think he left something behind. Something dangerous. Maisie looked up. Like what? Frank hesitated. Evidence, testimony, maybe a list, maybe locations. Maya turned her screen again. And we might have just found a clue. She clicked through grainy footage. It showed a man in a gas station, hunched over a phone, then zoomed closer. Hollow cheeks, military build, eyes scanning corners. That's Curtis Rowe, she said. Aaron's old spotter, declared dead 4 years ago. But this was shot last week. Lena stood slowly. So, what, you think he faked his death? No, Maya replied. I think he's been hiding, same as you, and someone found him. Frank nodded. And if we find him first, we might finally understand why Branwick's still chasing ghosts. Maisie stood. Then we find him. Team exchanged glances. Even Terry looked serious now. We'll need to move fast, Maya said. Curtis was spotted near 4 corners. If he's running, he won't stick around long. Frank turned to Lena. We've got a rig. Civilian. Profile. Looks like a beat-up RV. Doesn't move fast, but no GPS tag. Can you drive? Lena gave him a tired smile. I've driven cross-country in a vehicle with no AC and a busted rear axle. I'll manage. Frank looked at her daughter. And Maisie. Think, you can stay off enemy frequency? Maisie nodded. I'll ride shotgun. I've got a fresh signal suite and Switch showed me how to trace IP shadows. Frank laughed. Of course she did. They left Echo at dusk. The RV was dusty beige, half rusted, and smelled faintly of bacon grease and motor oil. Lena took the wheel. Maisie sat beside her with 2 laptops, a CB radio, and her dad's dog tags swinging gently from the mirror. Frank and Terry followed in a black Jeep 2 miles back, monitoring aerial sweeps and radio chatter. As they drove, Lena felt something shift. Not relief. Not exactly fear, either. Resolve. Curtis Rowe had been there the day Aaron died. If he was still alive, he knew why the Hollow Suns were hunting them now. He might even know what Aaron had been trying to protect. And Lena, she'd stopped running. She looked over at Maisie, who was frowning at the screen. You okay, kiddo? Maisie nodded, then paused. Mom, when this is over, what if we don't have to go back to hiding? Lena reached out and squeezed her hand. Then we don't. Outside, the highway stretched into the burning violet sky. The wind shifted. The dog tags clinked together. The road bent toward 4 corners, toward the truth. The sun had just begun its slow rise over the mesa when the Hollow Suns rolled again. They came in pairs, 2 at a time, spaced out along the shoulder of State Route 95 like vultures in formation. Chrome gleamed. Leather-cut vests rippled in. The wind. No plates. No fear. Just the dust, the roar of modified engines, and one mission: recover the Morgan girl and whatever her dead husband might have left behind. At the front of the procession rode Kane Dorsey, aka Iron Jaw, the gang's enforcer and former military intelligence dropout. His jaw, half steel, half scar, shined in the desert glare as he leaned into the curves. Behind him, 40 miles back, 2 black SUVs mirrored their route, blending in with civilian traffic. Hollow Sun's muscle, corporate oversight. The line was blurred now. Inside the lead SUV, a man in a tailored navy suit adjusted his earpiece. "Target is en route to 4 Corners," he said. "Converge as scheduled. No loose ends this time." Back on the open road, Lena kept the RV steady just below the speed limit. The vehicle coughed every few miles and swayed in crosswind, but it moved. That was enough. Maisie sat in the passenger seat, headphones on, scanning 3 separate frequencies. Her laptop screen reflected off the cracked windshield. The drone feed hovered in one window, and in another, a signal map tracked enemy movement. She stiffened. "Mom, eastbound bikes just crossed the 191 junction. 8 of them." Lena checked the rear view. Empty road, quiet desert. Then, far off, dust. Moving fast, Frank's voice crackled over their secure comm. "Confirmed. Hollow Suns are flanking. They've got eyes." Maisie's hands flew over the keyboard. Deploying drone, pinging license masks, encrypting redirect. Lena pressed harder on the gas, trying to coax more speed from the RV's wheezing engine. Terry's voice joined the channel. "We've got a choke point 6 miles ahead. Narrow pass, 1-lane bottleneck, perfect ambush site." Maisie froze. "They're funneling us." Frank's voice stayed calm. "Stay the course. We'll handle the blockade. You keep moving." "No," Lena snapped. "They'll tear you apart." "Better us than you and the girl," Frank replied. "You want to end this? Then find Roe. He's the key. We hold the road. You find the truth." Maisie's voice trembled. "Frank," but the line went dead. 6 miles ahead, Frank and Terry pulled the Jeep off the road, dust curling around the tires. They deployed tire chains across the narrow pass and primed 2 homemade spike bombs. From the hilltop above, Maya monitored the approach through high-range optics. ETA 2 minutes. "They're not slowing." Frank chambered around. "Let's give them a reason." And when the Hollow Suns crested the ridge full throttle expecting a slow RV, what they got instead was war. The first bike hit the chain, flipped twice, and crumpled in a spray of sparks. The second dodged, only to catch a wall of shotgun pellets square in the chest. Then came the spike bombs, small charges but precise. Tires shredded. Riders tumbled. Confusion bloomed like wildfire. From the ridge, Maya jammed their comms. Back on the road, Lena gunned the RV through the chaos. Maisie sat gripping the seat, trying not to scream. "They're not stopping, Mom." Lena didn't look back. "Neither are we." 3 bikes broke through the blockade and fell in pursuit, zigzagging through the debris like snakes. Maisie switched frequencies. "Frank, we've got 3 on our tail. Where are you?" No response. The RV bounced violently, shocks whining. Maisie yanked open the passenger drawer and pulled out a metal box. "What are you doing?" Lena shouted. Maisie opened it to reveal a small flare launcher and 2 signal grenades. "Playing dirty," she said. She opened the window, aimed back, and fired. The flare hit the lead biker's wheel well. Flames licked up. His bike swerved, caught the edge of the sand berm, and launched into a spin-out that sent him rolling across the gravel. Maisie's hands shook. 2 left. The second biker pulled up beside them, trying to force the RV off-road. Lena jerked. The wheel left, clipped him with the fender, and watched him disappear under the rearview mirror. Then silence. Maisie looked back, panting. "Is that it?" The last biker was still there. Iron Jaw. He wasn't trying to knock them off. He was watching, logging license plates, confirming passengers, and then peeled off. Maisie frowned. Why didn't he attack? Lena gritted her teeth. Because he already got what he needed. They made it to Four Corners by noon, the RV steaming, tires worn bare. It was too quiet, a ghost town wrapped in heat haze. Lena parked behind a shuttered gas station, scanning the lot. No civilians, no hollow suns, just a payphone that somehow still worked. Maisie checked the signal logs. "Mom, we're not alone." From across the street a man emerged. Tall, weathered, graying temples, dressed in a nondescript denim jacket and jeans, but with a movement that screamed trained muscle. His hands were up, his eyes tired. "Lena," he said softly. She stepped out, pistol drawn. "Curtis Rowe?" He nodded. "Why are they after me?" she demanded. He swallowed hard. "Because your husband never stopped fighting, even after he died." Maisie stared. "What does that mean?" Rowe looked at the girl, then at Lena. "It means he left something behind. For you. Something Branwick would kill to bury." "What is it?" Lena asked. Rowe reached into his jacket, slow, careful, and pulled out a flash drive. It was wrapped in a weathered leather cord. Aaron's initials were etched into the side. He called it the Black Ledger, Rowe said. Names, accounts, coordinates, everything. Lena stared. "Your husband didn't just die in an accident," Rowe said. He was silenced. Maisie's breath caught, and behind them, from the ridge, Ironjaw watched. He spoke softly into his headset. "Confirm Morgan contact. Ledger in play. Prepare full extraction." They were back at Echo before nightfall, and something about the station felt different, like the desert had gone still in anticipation. The air carried too much silence. Even the crickets held their breath. Curtis Rowe hadn't said a word since they left Four Corners. The flash drive, Aaron's so-called Black Ledger, now sat plugged into Maya's decrypted terminal inside the safe house, data cascading across 4 monitors. Lena stood over it, arms crossed, eyes scanning columns of names, contracts, timestamps, defense contractors, bank account shells in Belize, untraceable weapons shipments, missing people, not all of them dead. Her husband had been tracking this for years. He must have known they'd come for her once he was gone. Maisie sat on the floor beside her, knees to chest, holding the dog tags like a talisman. She was trying to stay composed, but her fingers twisted the chain tighter with every passing second. Outside, Terry and Frank checked perimeter charges. The tripwires were set. The fallback plan was active. A final choke point had been rigged behind the ridgeline, explosives ready to collapse the canyon if they needed to bury Echo for good. Frank stepped back inside, rifle slung, his expression grave. "We've got movement. Drones overhead, commercial grade, but smart. 4 bikes just crested the ridge. Scout pattern." Rowe moved to the window. "That's Kane. Ironjaw's leading this one himself." Lena turned. "So they know we're here." "Of course," he said. "They've always known. Echo's a thorn. Branwick's tried to burn down before." Maisie looked up, panic rising. "So, what do we do?" Frank exchanged a long look with, "Lena, we fight." The first assault hit at 10:47 p.m. 2 bikers moved fast and quiet, slipping past the tripwire with night vision goggles and suppressed weapons. They reached the rear entrance before Maya's alarm tripped, a soft chime over the internal PA system. Frank was already in motion, his rifle barked twice. 1 hit, 1 miss. The second biker returned fire, spraying the hallway. Bullets ricocheted off concrete. Lena grabbed Maisie and pulled her behind the gear crates. Rowe joined Frank, covering the rear exit. "They're probing." Frank nodded. "They're watching how we respond. Classic scout tactics. They'll send the real wave soon." Maisie whispered, "Can't we just run again?" Lena turned to her, breathing hard. "No, if we run, they follow. If we stay, maybe we end this." Terry radioed in from the South Ridge. 10 more coming. SUVs and trail. Looks like they're bringing everything this time." Maya clicked through thermal feeds. "And they've got signal jammers, localized. They're not just cutting our comms. They're isolating us." Lena grabbed the old military radio, her lifeline, the one that started all this, and clicked through frequencies, static, dead air. Her mouth went dry. Then, one channel lit up. A whisper. Echo, this is Dustcap. You, still breathing down there? Lena blinked. Who is this? Name's irrelevant. Frank called in a favor. We've got 6X operators within 20 clicks. Stay put. You hold Echo. We hold the valley. Maisie gasped. Frank smirked. Told you I had friends. The second assault came an hour later. This time it was full force. 2 trucks barreling down the canyon road, 20 bikers on either flank. Smoke grenades rolled into the ridge trench. Gunfire lit the sky in orange and staccato fury. Frank and Rowe held the outer defenses, dropping targets with brutal precision. Terry managed to detonate the fallback mine, collapsing the far wall just as 2 vehicles tried to flank. Dust swallowed the impact. Metal screeched. Tires shrieked. Silence followed. Inside, Lena covered the hallway, holding her pistol like it was an extension of her grief. She wasn't scared now. She was angry. These men hunted her child for a secret they buried with her husband. She would bury them instead. Maisie sat at Maya's console, running encryption scramblers. The black ledger's upload bar blinked, 78% complete. Just a few more minutes, she whispered, and then Ironjaw's voice cut through the building like a knife. It came through the PA system. They'd tapped the frequency. Mrs. Morgan, you've put up quite the fight, but you're surrounded. Your safe house is breached. Give us the flash drive and the girl walks. That's a promise. Lena's grip tightened on her pistol. Maisie's, eyes filled with tears. Frank shook his head. He doesn't keep promises. Lena stepped to the microphone. You want it? Come get it, but bring a coffin. Ironjaw laughed through the speakers. Brave, but stupid. Then came the third wave. They breached the main entrance with a homemade battering ram. 2 bikers slamming through the steel door with a reinforced truck grill. Fire erupted as they tossed in a Molotov cocktail. Flames curled along the wall. Smoke filled the bunker. Lena pulled Maisie to the rear tunnel. Frank shouted over the noise. Get her out, now! Terry activated the fallback lock. A steel plate slid into place behind them, sealing the hallway. Maya stayed behind to burn the drives. Rowe grabbed 2 rifles and followed Lena into the back tunnels. The girl had the ledger. That was all that mattered now. They emerged from the ventilation shaft into the desert just before midnight. Above them, muzzle flashes blinked on the ridge. Someone was fighting from the tree line. Dustcap's team. Frank's voice came through Lena's earpiece, garbled but clear enough. Run. Don't stop. You've got what they want. Lena took her daughter's hand. We're going to finish this. Behind them, Echo burned. And somewhere within the flames, Ironjaw realized too late. They hadn't just failed to capture the target. They'd created something worse. A mother with nothing left to lose. By dawn, the fire at Echo was a smoldering scar on the earth, the last of the flames curling off twisted rebar and scorched cement. The safe house was gone. The desert had taken it back. Frank Hale didn't make it out. Neither did Terry. Maya Alvarez was pulled from the debris 6 hours later by Dustcap's team. Unconscious, lungs burned from smoke, but alive. Her last act had been to upload the remaining contents of the Black Ledger to 3 independent networks before the hard drives melted. Lena stood barefoot on a rock ridge overlooking what had once been their shelter. Her boots were somewhere in the ash. Her palms were cut, knees bruised, one eye swollen nearly shut. She hadn't spoken since they escaped. Maisie sat beside her, wearing a jacket that still smelled faintly of gasoline and ozone. Her face was blank, but the way she gripped the radio told Lena everything. She was still listening. Still ready. Curtis Rowe approached quietly, holding a satellite phone. The upload went through. Files are viral. Branwick's people are trying to shut it down, but it's everywhere. Every journalist with a signal has it. Lena nodded, but didn't turn. They know Aaron was telling the truth, Rowe continued. The contractors, the kickbacks, the trafficking ties. Everything, Maisie whispered. So we win? Curtis hesitated. We wounded them, but men like Branwick, they don't fall easy. He handed Lena the phone. There's a reporter from D.C. wants to talk to you. She says she knew Aaron. Lena didn't take the phone. Let her wait. They took shelter in a church outside Aztec, New Mexico. Old adobe, half crumbling with no congregation and no priest. The stained glass windows were cracked, but the sunlight still poured through in fractured reds and blues. Maisie sat in the front pew with a toolkit, rewiring the battered drone for surveillance. She moved with focus now. Not as a game, as necessity. Lena slept on the altar steps, her father's old military jacket pulled over her shoulders. She dreamed of gunfire and radio static, of Aaron's voice calling coordinates she couldn't understand. When she woke, Ro was sitting nearby cleaning his sidearm. She's different now, Lena murmured. Ro nodded. She saw the worst of it, but she didn't flinch. I did, Lena admitted. No. You fought. They sat in silence. Then Ro pulled a folded document from his jacket. I wasn't going to show you this, but I think he wanted you to have it. Lena unfolded it. A letter, handwritten Aaron's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means I didn't outrun what was coming. I never told you everything because I thought I could stop it myself. I was wrong. The people we were up against, they don't fear laws, but they do fear truth. That's where you come in, Lena. You always saw through the noise. If they come after you and Maisie, it means the truth scared them. That means we still have a chance. Finish what I started, protect our girl, and if you have to fight, fight like hell. Lena didn't cry. There was no time left for that. She folded the letter, slid it into her coat pocket, and stood. Where's Ironjaw? Ro looked up, ran, took what was left of the Suns and scattered, but they're regrouping, probably in Arizona. Lena reached for the map on the wall. Then that's where we go next. By nightfall, they were rolling again, this time in a black SUV from Dustcap's team, unmarked and freshly fueled. Maisie leaned her head on the window, watching stars smear past. I don't want to run forever, she said. Lena kept her hands, steady on the wheel. We're not running, we're hunting now. Ro sat in the back checking weapons. I've got a lead on a shell company in Yuma, one of Branwick's laundering fronts. If we hit them hard enough, we might draw him out. Lena nodded. Good, he's hiding behind too many curtains. Time to burn down the theater. Maisie sat up straighter. And what if we can't prove it? Lena glanced at her in the mirror. Then we make it hurt. Outside, the desert blurred again, but this time it didn't feel endless. This time they had direction. They had names. They had leverage. They had the truth. And truth, once released, was a weapon with no safety switch. Meanwhile, in a glass-walled penthouse in El Paso, Edward Branwick stood alone, watching the news tick across 5 screens. Multiple agencies were named in the report. DoD contracts suspended. 2 senators distancing themselves from any known affiliation. He sipped his whiskey, jaw clenched. A figure stepped in from the hallway. Ironjaw. She survived, Branwick said. Ironjaw didn't. Answer, and the drive? Leaked, Ironjaw growled. But it's only phase 1. She doesn't know what the second package is. Branwick turned slowly. What second package? Ironjaw paused. Ro never gave her the second drive. Branwick's smile was slow and cruel. Then there's still time. Outside, a black helicopter ignited its rotors, and inside, the war that Lena Morgan thought she'd escaped shifted shape again. From survival to insurgency. The desert hadn't changed, still flat, still unrelenting, still stretching to the horizon like an old scar the world forgot to heal. But Lena Morgan had changed. She stood on the roof of an abandoned storage facility just outside Yuma, binoculars, pressed to her face, eyes locked on the Branwick Solutions office 2 blocks away. To any passerby, it looked like a generic logistics firm, whitewashed exterior, 2 security guards, 1 U.S. flag out front flapping in the wind. But Lena saw it differently. This was a lair, a fortress where men like Edward Branwick buried bodies behind screens, disguised tyranny as paperwork. Roe emerged from the stairwell behind her, dressed in janitorial khakis, with a company badge clipped to his chest. "You ready?" he asked. Lena lowered the binoculars. "Always." An hour later, Lena walked through the Branwick lobby with a mop bucket, an ID badge that read, Diane Selden, and a duffel bag full of problems. Maisie was parked in the delivery van down the alley wearing a headset, eyes glued to her laptop. "Camera loop is live," she whispered. "You've got 10 minutes, maybe 12. Office is on the second floor, northwest corner." Roe moved in from the freight entrance carrying a small cooler marked catering. Inside it, under a foil lid, sat a military-grade flash drive, clamped into a relay scrambler. If they could patch into Branwick's intranet for just 90 seconds, Maya's cloud server could siphon the rest. Names, routes, shell companies, even who had fed Lena's name to the Hollow Suns. That was the real prize. Upstairs, the office hallway was silent, carpeted in gray, surveillance cameras rotating with robotic indifference. Lena swiped the badge and stepped into the target office. She wasn't prepared for what she saw. Not files, not safes, a server tower, alone in the corner. Running, and beside it, photos, a corkboard with printouts. Maisie's school picture, Lena's last known driver's license, a satellite image of the ranger station. Her hand trembled. "This was a kill room," she whispered. Roe entered behind her. "They were hunting you like a data point." Maisie's voice cut in over the earpiece. "Guys, hurry. Ironjaw just entered the building. I see him on the east wing cam. He's got 3 others." Lena's blood went cold. Roe shoved the drive into the server port. 90 seconds. Get ready to run." But Lena didn't move. She was staring at the corkboard again. Near the top, paper clipped in the corner, was something she never expected. A photograph of Aaron, black and white, beard, trimmed, alive, dated 2 months after his funeral. "What is this?" she breathed. Roe looked up, shocked. "That's impossible. I watched him die. I held his—" The door burst open. Ironjaw stepped in. He didn't speak. He didn't sneer. He just raised his weapon and fired. Roe dove left. Lena rolled right. The bullet cracked the server tower. Sparks erupted. Maisie screamed through the headset, "I'm losing the connection!" Lena crawled for the duffel bag and yanked free a smoke canister. She pulled the pin and lobbed it. The room filled with gray mist. Coughing. Heat. Shouts. Then came the hallway sprint. Bullets stitched the wall behind them. Roe covered her rear, firing 2 clean shots. One man dropped. The other hesitated and Lena slammed him with the mop bucket. By the time they reached the stairwell, the fire alarm had triggered. Maisie's voice came back in. 5 cops inbound. You have seconds. They bolted into the alley and jumped into the van. Lena grabbed the wheel. Roe yanked the side door shut. Drive. They peeled out onto gravel, rear tires fishtailing, sirens in the distance, smoke trailing behind them, like the tail of a comet. 20 minutes later, in an underpass 2 towns away, they regrouped. Maisie yanked the drive from the laptop, panting. Got partial data, but they cut the feed early. Not sure how much we kept. Lena handed her the photo. Maisie stared at it. That's Dad. Roe took it, analyzing. Could be old. Could be doctored. No, Lena said. The date's embedded in the corner. It's a new format. This isn't archival. This is a still from security footage. And that, she pointed, is a timestamp from the Denver Secure Detention Hub. Roe looked stunned. That's a black site. DHS used it until 2022. It's not even listed anymore, Maisie whispered. You're saying he's alive? Lena stared straight ahead into the dark. No, I'm saying they kept him. Roe lowered the photo. Maisie looked between them. Then we go to Denver. Roe nodded. We'll need more than gear. That's a federal facility. Reinforced. Eyes everywhere. Lena stepped outside the van and into the night. Then it's Time we stop fighting shadows. Time we make some noise. The next morning, the story broke. A whistleblower report published on 3 independent news sites. Files from the Black Ledger, names, contracts, torture reports, private prison logs, and one photo Aaron Morgan undated underguard, captioned, "Is this man really dead?" The internet exploded. Cable news scrambled, and Branwick Solutions issued a press release at 11:02 a.m., denying everything. But the smoke was out. The trail was burning. And Lena Morgan? She was already on the road to Denver. There were storms over Denver that night, low clouds roiling with thunder and the kind of static that made old radios whisper. Lena could feel it humming in her bones. Something was about to break. She sat parked in a service alley 3 blocks from the former DHS facility. A chain-link fence lined with rusted razor wire encircled the building, and beyond it stood gray concrete walls and 4 towers blinking red in the rain. Maisie adjusted the signal dish mounted on their SUV's roof. The girl had grown into her role like she'd been born for it. Knees tucked beneath her, headphones on, intercept software flickering in front of her face. Roe stood nearby under the overhang of a warehouse awning, watching the skyline. "Third, tower has active thermals," he said. "But their perimeter checks are sloppy. They don't expect company." Lena popped the glove compartment. Inside sat a second flash drive, the one Roe had kept hidden, the one Aaron had entrusted to him with his final breath. He had meant to deliver it to Lena one day, until fear got the better of him, until she pulled him back from the brink. Lena handed it to Maisie. "Ready to broadcast?" Maisie nodded. "Live in 5. Roe eyed the building again. "We breach on the tower's south side. Maintenance duct. I'll handle the entry. You get to the server room. If Aaron's alive, his signal will be there." Lena's grip tightened on the wheel. "If." Roe said nothing. They waited for the storm to crest. At 2:14 a.m. the sky cracked open and they moved. The black site's power grid flickered as Maisie launched a microwave pulse from their modified drone, a homemade EMP burst strong enough to black out door sensors and cameras for 30 seconds. That was all they needed. Roe moved first, scaling the rear duct like a spider. Lena followed, gloves slick from the rain. She never looked down, just up, toward the truth. They entered through a vent into the staff lockers, empty, sterile, smelling faintly of bleach and cold steel. Maisie's voice came over the comm. "Timers synced, cameras looping. You've got a 7-minute window." They ran. Down. 2 corridors, past shuttered interrogation rooms and steel doors with false names. Everything in here was meant to erase identity, to scrub the souls of men like Aaron into numbers. Lena reached the server room and stopped. Inside stood 2 men. One held a rifle. The other wore a suit. Branwick. He turned as if he'd been expecting her. "Mrs. Morgan." Lena didn't hesitate. She raised her pistol and fired. The rifleman dropped first, center mass. Branwick dove behind the server rack. "Row 5, Maisie shouted over the mic. "The data terminal is row 5. Lena ran as Roe covered her flank, bullets ringing through metal like a twisted orchestra. She dove, slammed the second drive into the port and whispered, "Run the signal." From miles away, Maisie did. At that moment, over 300,000 listeners heard the signal cut into an emergency broadcast channel across the Southwest, on radios, on scanners, on CB networks. A voice crackled through. "My name is Aaron Morgan. I am alive. I am being held without due process. This is not a rogue nation. This is U.S. territory, and my imprisonment is illegal." Then came the files. Footage, audio, signed orders, documents naming Branwick and his network. It spread like fire, and inside the server room, Branwick knew it was over. He rose slowly, gun trembling in his hand. "You don't know what you've started," he said. Lena raised hers. "No, but I know how it ends." She pulled the trigger. They left him there, cuffs on, locked in his own prison, awaiting the authorities he thought he controlled. Roe hit the fire alarm as they ran. As sirens blared, Lena's thoughts were already, With Maisie, back in the SUV surrounded by hacked drones, hands on the radio, her voice the newest frequency of justice. By dawn, it was everywhere. TV stations scrambled to replay the broadcast. Senators called for hearings. Families who had lost loved ones to silence began demanding names. And in a small trailer park outside Flagstaff, a dozen SUVs pulled up to a weathered RV and knocked on a door. Not with weapons, with warrants and gratitude. Lena and Maisie sat on a hilltop outside the city that night, overlooking the sprawl, the lights, the sirens. Rose stood nearby, silent, distant. Maisie tugged the dog tags from her neck and held them out. "I think he'd want you to have them," she said. Lena took them, eyes wet but strong. Then she turned on the radio, static at first. Then a familiar voice, crackling, distant, but unmistakably him. "Sierra Lima. If you're hearing this." I never stopped, listening. Lena closed her eyes, smiled, and whispered. Neither did we. The radio still crackled. A faint hum across Channel 7, barely perceptible but steady. Like a heartbeat. Maisie adjusted the dials on the rebuilt transceiver, her small fingers nimble and confident. She was perched on a folding chair outside their new safe house, an A-frame cabin tucked into the red canyons near Sedona, ringed by pine and the chirr of cicadas. Summer was just cresting into monsoon season, and the morning light had the soft orange of redemption. Lena stepped out onto the porch with 2 tin mugs of coffee, one strong and steaming, the other diluted just enough for an 11-year-old trying to act older than her years. Maisie accepted it with a smile. They sat in silence. For a moment, the world had gone quiet, but not numb, not anymore. There was a different kind of stillness now, earned, not imposed. Lena glanced toward the ridgeline where the last drone had been buried beneath 3 feet of red dust. A marker stood there now, handmade from wood, initials burned, in with a soldering iron FHTK Maya A. They listened when no one else did. 3 weeks had passed since the Denver breach. Branwick was in federal custody, indicted on 16 counts ranging from unlawful detainment to treason. The Hollow Suns had fractured, half absorbed into splinter groups, the rest either hunted, down or disappearing into the shadows from which they'd come. Roe had vanished, leaving only a torn page from Aaron's journal and a note. The truth is scattered, but there's more to find. If you ever need backup, key the mic. Maisie found it taped under the drone controller. That morning, Lena opened the mailbox at the end of the gravel drive to find a small, unmarked envelope. Inside was a photo. Grainy, low-res, but unmistakable. Aaron, standing in what looked like a medical tent. Thinner, aged, but alive. On the back, a frequency was scrawled in ink. Still listening. Still out here. 243.55 megahertz, 0600 hours. Lena exhaled so hard it almost sounded like a sob. Then looked at her daughter. Maisie smiled softly. "We're gonna find him, aren't we?" Lena nodded. "That's what we do." At 5:59 a.m. they powered up the radio. At 6 hours on the dot, a signal pulsed. Faint at first, then stronger. "Sierra Lima. This is Atlas. If you copy, initiate call and response." Lena's breath caught. "Atlas?" Maisie's fingers hovered over the dial. Then Lena grabbed the mic. "Atlas, this is Sierra Lima. Call and response, Crescent Moon, Shadow West." A pause. Then, Crescent confirmed, eyes open, sun rising. Maisie gasped. Lena smiled. "It's him. Package safe. Moving south. You're not alone." Maisie whispered, "Dad." There was static. Then his voice again. "Baby girl. You're safe. I knew you'd find me." Maisie pressed her forehead to the mic. "I fixed the radio, Dad. Just like you said, I never stopped listening." "I know, sweetheart. I heard every beat." Lena closed her eyes. The tears came now, not from fear, not from grief, but from completion. She had walked through fire, survived a siege, torn down empires one encrypted file at a time. And at the end of it all was not vengeance. It was this. A voice in the static. A family still reaching for each other. A future still possible. The sunrise broke at 6:11 a.m., slow and golden, and as the sky blazed open across the red hills, Lena, Morgan held her daughter close. They didn't know how far Aaron was, or how soon they'd find him, but they had the signal. They had each other. And somewhere out there, beyond the radio tower and signal jam and border fence, a father was listening.